Hi everyone, my name is Amy. I am 25 years old. I live in kind of rural Minnesota and this is my fertility story. So I have been trying to get pregnant now for almost a year. Actually, it's been about a year. We've been trying, on and off to get pregnant for about a year. And we have had just the worst kind of shitty experience trying to get pregnant, and it sucks. And I think more people need to talk about it, and that's why I just wanted to make this video kind of sharing my story of trying to get pregnant and how it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it's not, oh, we tried for 6 months and we got pregnant and it was great and here's my baby, because that's just not been the reality for us. I first got pregnant back in July of 2019. I found out I was pregnant. I was due for my period on, it was the end of July, I think it was a Wednesday I was supposed to be due for my period, and that Tuesday I took a pregnancy test and I saw just a really faint positive line, but it was definitely positive. I'll insert a picture here, but it was definitely a positive pregnancy test, and I was shocked because we had only been trying to get pregnant for a few months and I didn't think it was going to happen that fast, but it did. And so I was so excited. I mean, right away it was like, obviously it was a faint line, but in my head I was like, this is it, I'm pregnant. And so I called my doctor and they were like, well, just take another test in 48 hours. And because theoretically the line is supposed to get darker as your HCG, which is your hormones, your pregnancy hormone, as that rises, it's supposed to get darker on the test. So I took a test the next morning with first morning urine and it wasn't getting any darker. It was the same color, but I was like, well, maybe it's just because it's so soon and it is really early. Same thing on Thursday, wasn't getting any darker, but it was still a line. And then on Friday I started spotting, and then by Saturday I was full blown bleeding, and I took a pregnancy test and it was negative. So everything kind of happened really fast. That was my first miscarriage and I was devastated because at the time I was 24. Everyone just kept saying you're so young, you've got all this time, but it just felt, it was shocking that I was not pregnant anymore and that it was just over. And it hurt bad. It sucked. So we stopped trying for a few months, and then October I think is when we started trying again. And in November, it was November, I ended up getting another really faint positive line on a pregnancy test. Actually, I think it was December. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up on my phone, but I think it was December, actually, early December. I got another really faint positive pregnancy test, and then the next day I got my period. So I now was on to 2 sort of more chemical pregnancies is what they would call them. The first one for me just was it was a miscarriage. It sucked. It was, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think all miscarriages are terrible. It sucks whether it's at 5 weeks or at 35 weeks. It's just devastating all around. But I think when they're early like this, at least for me, it was I would take about a week or 2, and it still hurts to this day to talk about those, but then you start to get over it and you start to just move on and process it easier, and now I can talk about it pretty freely without getting sad about it. But so with the chemical pregnancy I had in December, it was I didn't really get my hopes up that time because I wanted to wait to see what happened, but it was okay, I'm getting pregnant, but I'm not staying pregnant, and that, that sucks. So in January, I made an appointment to see my OBGYN, and she agreed that it was time to start doing some fertility tests because, since we had been trying for so long and I've had at that point, by the time I actually went into the doctor, yeah, there was 2 different times I got those sort of really faint lines, plus the miscarriage in July. So we were up to like 3 sort of times that we conceived, but I wasn't able to stay pregnant. So that's not normal. And so I called my doctor. Like I said, I went to the doctor and she ordered a bunch of different tests. So she ordered like a bunch of different blood tests, and I couldn't tell you what all the tests were, to be honest with you. There was a lot. And then an HSG test, which is they put dye into your uterus, and then they use like radiology to look at your uterus and to look at the shape of it to make sure, like, you know, everything's good. And so I got that test done in February, and then I got all the blood work, or I got all the blood work done in January, and then all the I got the HSG in February. So, or no, I'm getting this all backwards. I got the HSG I remember it was Valentine's Day, and then I got the blood work done a few weeks later, or the next week, because you have to get those tests done on certain cycle days. So for the HSG test, I got that on cycle day 10, and then for all the blood work, it was cycle day 21. When they did the HSG test, they found out that my left fallopian tube was actually blocked, which that doesn't cause miscarriage necessarily. It's more just I can't produce, like the eggs won't come through that side because it's blocked. And then the right side looked fine, and then the shape of my uterus looks all good. So it's my doctor was worried it was like a uterus kind of issue where the shape of my uterus was causing me to miscarry. And then with all the blood work, I forget what she tested. I should actually just look that up. Okay, so for my blood work that I got done, I got a progesterone test, which came back in the normal range. TSH, it says TSH with free T4 reflex. Again, I don't even know what some of these mean. That one also came back normal. Prolactin, which came back abnormal. It came back high. And then lupus anticoagulant panel came back negative. There's a couple different tests that came back. Basically, there's 2 tests that came back with a bad result. So one of them was the prolactin levels. My prolactin levels were slightly elevated. And then the other one was anti-nuclear ABY. Basically, it's ANA. It's basically, here's what my doctor said. It can be elevated in normal people, but can also be elevated in people with autoimmune disorders. So I have to go into a rheumatologist now to get some more tests done to see if I have some sort of autoimmune disorder that's causing me to miscarry. But the soonest they could get me in was July, and I made this appointment in early March, and the earliest they could get me in was July. So now we're just kind of playing the waiting game. But just a few days after I got all these tests done, about a week later, after all the blood work, I found out I was pregnant. And this time the lines actually were progressing normally, and I actually was getting, because I'm higher risk because of my miscarriages, my doctor was actually ordering blood work every 2 days so that she could track and monitor my HCG and make sure it was rising normally, because when you're pregnant, it should double every 48 hours. So my starting level was 14, and then 2 days later it was at 48, which is, triple what the first day was. So I was like, wow, this is such a good sign. It's, I'm progressing normally. Then the next test was had doubled as well. It was 84, I think, something like that. And then the 4th test I took I found out my HCG had stopped rising, so the pregnancy was no longer viable. So I was miscarrying for, I guess that would technically be my 4th miscarriage, but this one just felt so much worse knowing that it started off so strong, which is sometimes it's silly to even say that, because it's I was only 4 weeks along, but for me it was it felt like it was starting off so positive, and I was like, this is it, we're gonna be pregnant this time. I had nothing to worry about, but then we lost it. And then here's where the story kind of takes a turn, because I've had kind of just hell experience in the last month. So I started miscarrying on, well, I found out I was going to lose the pregnancy on March 9th. Also to note, as soon as I got pregnant, my doctor had me start taking progesterone vaginally, and then I took, which was twice a day, so in the morning and at night, and then I was also taking baby aspirin, and then my prenatals as well. So I was doing those 3 things, and I'll probably do those for all my pregnancies moving forward, assuming I get pregnant soon. But so I found out I was gonna lose the baby on March 9th, and by March 13th, which was, so that was a Monday, so by Friday I started spotting and then bleeding like normally pretty heavily, starting a couple days later. So I bled for about 2 weeks straight, and then I reached out to my doctor and I was like, hi buddy. Hi, what are you doing? What are you doing? He wants to be part of this. You're so sweet. So I had been bleeding for about 2 weeks straight when I reached out to my doctor, and I was like, hey, I'm still bleeding and I've been getting some pretty intense cramps. Am I okay? Like, is this a normal thing? Should I be worried? My dog is being so weird. Yeah, so about 2 weeks, and I was like I said, I asked if that was normal or if I should be worried or, you know, what have you. I'm actually gonna see what I said. And so one of the RNs reached back and said, it's not typically normal, asked if I was feeling dizzy, if I had felt any significant pain, yada yada yada. Asked if I wanted a DNC or if I wanted any sort of like medication to help complete the miscarriage, and I said I'd rather not get a DNC if I don't have to. I'd rather just take a medication since I wasn't super far along. But they didn't ask me to come in, which kind of sucks, I feel like. But I did respond and say there were a few days where I had surges of significant pain, but it's been about a week since that had happened. Some clots, there were a few days I felt dizzy, blah blah blah. Basically they just prescribed me misoprostol to try to get rid of the rest of the tissue, and that was that. And then so around noon on April 4th I started feeling some pain, and it wasn't like cramping pain, it was a different kind of pain, and it's so hard to describe, but it was just pain in my abdomen, like in my uterus area. And so I was like, that's weird, but I, you know, went on with my day, and by about, I think it was 6 o'clock, the pain had gotten so bad. Actually at 3 o'clock, I remember, because I had to run to the grocery store, and I came back and I actually called my husband and I was like, can you run me a bath? Because I need to, like, I'm having such bad cramps. I need to get in the bath and, like, hopefully they'll go away. And they were still so bad. I took a bath, got out of the bath, went and laid down, put a heating pad on. It was so bad. It was so bad that I could barely stand up. I could barely walk. I remember trying to pee hurt. I remember, like, maybe this is TMI, but I was trying to go number 2 and I could not go because it hurt so bad. It felt like I was gonna, like, everything was just gonna fall out. And so I was like, well, we probably should go to the emergency room because this could be ectopic, just based on, you know, what I know about ectopic pregnancies and just what Google tells me. Like, if you're feeling significant pain coupled with heavy bleeding, it's not good. So we went to the ER. Because we're in a pandemic and because of COVID, my husband wasn't able to come in with me, which was awful. I was so scared, and you're just by yourself, and it's already such an isolating experience to have a miscarriage and to... I didn't think I was gonna cry. it's already an isolating experience to have fertility issues and to go through a miscarriage. And you know, I think a lot of women can relate to this, where like my husband is the best. He's the best. I love him so much, and he's so good at making me feel better, and he's so supportive, and he's the best husband. But I think it's still hard for him to like wrap his head around what I'm going through. I had to go get my dog because she's freaking out. But anyways, I think a lot of women can relate to this, where even if you have the most supportive partner in the world, it's still hard to explain what you're going through. And it's hard for your husband or your partner or whoever you're with. It's hard for them to know what to say sometimes. It's hard for them to know what to do. But anyways, so it's already an isolating experience having a miscarriage, but then to not have any family or anyone to, you know, I can't have my husband come with me into the hospital while I'm going through something like this was awful. It was so traumatic. Like, and I'm laughing because I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing just because it's uncomfortable. But so I walked in, and here's just a little snippet of what it's like to be in the hospital during a pandemic. There was nobody in the hospital. Like, thankfully Minnesota has been really good about social distancing, and so we barely have any cases in our area, at least. So the hospitals are just prepared and ready to go. I think we probably have a couple people in the hospital for COVID, but they were in a totally separate wing than I was. But other than that, it's like people aren't going to the hospital for things as much anymore. Like, they're not going to the ER if they cut their finger, you know, things like that. They're not seeing that as much. So like, the hospital was pretty empty when I was there, and it was very eerie. The triage nurse, when I came in, I was so disappointed with. And this is the thing, I love my hospital. I love everybody at the hospital. They're fantastic. But this triage nurse kept asking me, she's like, how many miscarriages have you had? And I'm like, well, and I just said 2 because, you know, 2 technically. Benny. I said 2, and she goes, how many pregnancies have you had? And I said, just the 2. So you don't have any living children? And I was like, nope, I don't have any living children. Thank you so much for being sensitive about that and just rubbing that in my face. Like, I was so put off by the way she said that to me, like, so you don't have any living children? It's like, and anyone who's experiencing fertility issues, it's like, that's the worst thing you could say to them. I don't know, it's just, like, thank you for shoving that in my face that I don't have any living children. I appreciate it. Anyways, so then I get wheeled back, and immediately, like, they start asking me a bunch of questions, and thankfully I had such a good nurse, and she was like, because I got in there and I just started crying, and she was rubbing my back, and she's like, it's gonna be okay. Like, she let me have my moment of just sobbing and crying and being stressed out and overwhelmed, because I knew, like, just from what I know about ectopic pregnancies, I knew that I could be leaving the hospital with, you know, I knew I could be having surgery that night, potentially. And I did. So I got a few different tests done. First they just did like a regular pelvic exam, but he couldn't see anything. They asked me questions about where my pain was. He kind of pushed on my stomach a little bit. And then he ordered an ultrasound and some blood work. They put me on an IV. I was feeling so faint too. Like, I already get really faint at the hospital. At hospitals just from regular things, but I hadn't really eaten that night because it was around dinner time and we rushed to the hospital, and I just felt so queasy, and so they got me in an IV, which really helped me stop feeling so queasy. But again, it was hard to go to the bathroom, it was hard to do anything because I was in pain and I was feeling dizzy. And so they did the blood work and everything, and then they did an ultrasound, and the ultrasound came back. He said he could see swelling on my left fallopian tube, which, if you remember, is the one that was blocked. So I was like, that's so strange because that's my blocked tube. I knew they were going to tell me I had an ectopic pregnancy. I just you know, I knew it was coming, but I was like, that's so strange that it's on the left side, even though, again, looking back, hindsight's 2020, I had pain on my left side, but I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How is it, you know, on my left side when I have a blocked tube? And then it turns out my HCG had never gone back to 0, so it was at, my level was at 50, and it was at 83 when I started. That's as high as it got, was 83. So then it was still at 50, so that meant there was obviously still something in there, and so they called the OB on call, and he said that you can do 2 things for ectopic pregnancies. You can get a shot and it'll kind of get rid of everything, or you have to get surgery. Shh. And he told me that just with how mine was, that the shot wasn't an option, and that I was going to have the whole tube removed, which is just not something I thought I would ever hear at age 25. I never thought, you know, I don't know, I just never thought I'd be dealing with something like this. So one thing they did, thank God, is they were like, we're on the phone with hospital administrators, and we're going to see if we can get an exception to have your husband come in. So thank God they got an exception, and he was able to, and we only lived like a couple miles from the hospital, not even, so he was just at home so scared and stressed the whole time, and so he came in, and he was able to, you know, comfort me before surgery. And yeah, so I had surgery. They had to remove the left fallopian tube, and now here we are. And I still have my rheumatology appointment in July. I still have, you know, I'm still going to be doing more testing and figuring out if I do have some sort of autoimmune disorder or what. But as of right now, I'm not trying to get pregnant anymore, at least I think until August. I think we're going to wait just because I'm mentally... She's going to give me a hug. You know Mama's sad. Did you know Mama's sad? Can I have a hug? So like I said, we're not going to try for a little while because, quite frankly, emotionally, I just cannot take another loss right now. It's like... She's drinking water. Okay. I'm going to say this again. We're not going to try to get pregnant, I think, until August at this point. We're going to do the rheumatology appointment in July and see how that goes. See if I've got some sort of underlying autoimmune thing that I don't know about. And see if that's, you know, they can fix that, and then I'll be able to get pregnant, or I don't know. Either way, we're not going to keep trying, because if I have another loss, I just can't take it. I don't know, it's like you feel like a part of your womanhood is gone, or like you're failing at what your body is supposed to do because you can't get pregnant easily. And like now I have here's the thing, I was gonna say I have less of a chance, but they say that you don't have less of a chance because you only have one tube, but, or like your chances of getting pregnant are only slightly lowered. It's not anything like, you know, drastic, but it's still like, it just feels weird not, I don't know, not having that anymore. And I'm just trying to find the positives in all of this. One of the positives that's helped me through this is like, you know, had we stayed pregnant last July, I would have been due like this week. So I would have been due in the midst of this pandemic, and, you know, potentially my husband couldn't have come with me into the delivery room, or, you know, my parents couldn't meet their grandchild for, you know, months. And I think that would be really hard for me to deal with. And so there's part of me that's like, God is just telling me that this is not the right timing right now. And, you know, even this time I got pregnant, it's like, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe there's something else coming down the pipe that I don't know about. My husband and I are firm believers in everything happens for a reason, even when it doesn't feel like there's a reason for it. But, you know, I'm just trying to stay hopeful, and I am thankful that I am 25, because I do have many years ahead of me, and we can figure out if maybe we need to go the adoption route or IVF or whatever it might be. At least I know that that could be the reality that we're facing. But for now, I'm just trying to take things day by day, and like I said, stay positive. I'm thankful that I recovered really fast. So It's been 2 weeks now, just over 2 weeks since the surgery, and I pretty much feel back to normal. I have a scar in my belly button that hurts a lot, or like it's really uncomfortable. But other than that, I've 3 incisions, but the one in my belly button is the one that's really the annoying one. Other than that, like, I feel pretty much back to normal. I'm honestly, I don't know, I feel fine, but I'm just trying to focus on like self-care things, and like I'm gonna try to get back into working out and staying in shape, and you know, focus on other things. My camera cut out. I'm gonna focus on things other than just getting pregnant for the rest of the year, because number one, 2020 sucks. It's been the worst year ever for I think most people, but especially with what I'm going through, this has been the worst year of my life by far. The whole year is just has not been great. So I'm trying to find other things to focus on to make me happy. So one of those things is gonna be YouTube. I'm like really wanting to start Penny's so funny. I'm really wanting to start sharing some of my things I'm passionate about, and like, you know, my home, and I'm really into thrifting, and I do, you know, a bunch of different things, and so I want to get into that. And then I don't know, I just want to have different things to focus on other than just getting pregnant. That's my fertility story so far. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I don't know if anyone's even going to watch this, because I obviously don't have any subscribers or followers or anything, but yeah, I think that's all I have to say, and thank you for watching, and I will see you maybe in another video. Bye.